Welcome back to Bunny Banter, the first and only podcast for everything Killer Bunnies. I'm your host, Matt, here with co-host Mikey.
Hello.
And as a guest today, we of course have Chris.
Yay.
So, let's talk about the elephant in the room. It has been a while. I think it's been over a month since our last episode. We've all been pretty busy. I've relocated to a completely different apartment, moved out of the parents' basement, woot, for work. That's what I was busy with. Mikey was busy getting engaged, and Chris has been poisoned.
Yeah.
It wasn't me this time. I'm not at home. Okay, what are we talking about today, Mikey?
Today we're talking about Twilight White Booster.
Yes, so we're continuing the booster review series. It's been a while, so I'll go over what we usually do here. We each have picked one card that we do not like for whatever reason. It could be that we don't like drawing it. It could be that we don't like it having it played against us. Whatever the reason, we don't like this card. And then we also have our top 3 favorite cards in the set. Maybe we like how the card works. Maybe we like the theme. Whatever the conditions, top 3 favorite cards from the set. Okay, starting with the ban card. My ban card from Twilight White Booster Deck is Carousel. So Carousel is a card that literally never sees play in our groups because this card reads that all players who have reached their 30th birthday, and we can stop right there. We don't care what the rest of the card does because we don't typically play with anyone who's reached their 30th birthday. But if you really want to continue reading, it gives them it attacks them slightly. So disadvantage to be an older opponent, I guess. So much for respecting the elderly, but naturally this card never sees play, so therefore it is on my ban list because it is completely worthless. It always is a target for top run rotate synergies. Sometimes having no value is having a lot of value. Okay, Chris, what's your ban card? It is the Kalen.
It is the Kalen. My ban card. Kinda like me, as someone who is poisoned and allergic to wheat dust, and both are killing me right now. Calcite Conundrum is a great ban card, because if you have not played in a 2 to 3 player game where someone gets Calcite Conundrum, and they also manage to draw 2 ranks, you do not know the pain that I'm in. All I ask is if you play in a 2-player game often and you don't think Calcite Conundrum is overpowered, please rethink your life.
Playing 6 cards a turn is fair and balanced versus 1 card a turn without a bunny, usually.
Most likely without a bunny because they have 6 opportunities to kill you every turn.
Yeah, fun! Better hope you draw weakest link. That's
To
your
be
one
fair,
out.
it's very fun when you have the card, but again, why?
It's one of those cards, and Bunny Triplets actually fall in this category too, where in a game with larger player counts, it never matters because it's not going to last long. Bunny Triplets are often the same way, even in full set, where if you're playing an 8-player game, it's hard enough to keep one bunny, much less a bunny triplet. And with Calcite Conundrum, you are dying instantly. That is not lasting 1 round. But yes, in a 2-player game, absolutely disgusting. Okay. Mikey, what is your ban card?
My ban card is Defense Card Suspender. This may be used once by a player to suspend the use of all defense cards for 1 round of play, may be used at any time. The main reason I don't like this is just because in my circles of Killer Bunnies, defense cards aren't used all that often. And so this card is kind of worthless. It's kind of worthless to keep in your hand. Actually, it's definitely worthless to keep in your hand. And it's it's pretty much worthless to try to run through and save it. Yeah, it's just all around kind of worthless in the games I play. Now, if it were to be useful, where somebody would be using a defense card, or multiple people using defense cards, maybe even myself using defense cards. Well, it's a sad day if I'm using defense cards and I decide to play it so that my opponent can't can't use their defense cards. Um, well, then I'm vulnerable for one whole round of play, and so retaliation. So I don't know. I think it's kind of worthless, and when I would use it, it leaves me vulnerable for a turn. So yeah, I don't necessarily like this card, so that's why I'm banning it.
Yeah, thank goodness with in the case of this ban card it is a very special, so you can discard it. If this was a run card, that would be sad. But yeah, we've had the same problem. I mean, Chris and I recently, in our personal group, defense cards became quite popular for quite a bit. They kind of took the place of pawns and even medals for a bit. But even then, this card still didn't feel that good. Okay, moving on to a more exciting note, the top 3 favorite cards from the set for each of us. Starting with number 3, my number 3 card is Pawn Recall, a non-aggressive run card that forces all players to return their pawns to the pawn shop, and then the pawns can't be purchased again until the next player's turn. So this is this is the example I always go to when talking about how often a mechanic is introduced, such as pawns or defense cards, and then in a few boosters later, if that mechanic turns out to be really strong, like pawns are when you first add the orange booster, in fact, they're extremely strong. If you're not going for pawns before when you add the orange booster, you are crazy. I think Jeff would disagree with that, but mathematically it's proven. uh, as soon as Twilight White booster comes out, which is 2 boosters later, that strategy is no longer unquestionably good. It adds a interesting decision points where, yes, I could go for this amazing synergy with pawns and these high value P cards like Super Supply Surprise, but I'm always at the risk of what if somebody draws Pawn Recall and they don't even need a bunny to play it. They're just going to ruin my entire strategy with one card. So I love that kind of balance. Where you have this strong mechanic, but then all of a sudden there is a high risk. Another card released later, Pawn Star from the Onyx booster, is even a bigger punish, especially in a 2-player game. So that's my number 3, Pawn Recall, for countering an unquestionably good strategy when it first came out. What you got, Chris?
Well, I was gonna say, because I think somebody needs to say it, that Twilight was one of those expansions that threw in a lot of good cards.
Yes.
And I had a hard time picking which ones I wanted to list.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I thought one of us should have said EM Pulse. It breaks a few good game-winning plays, like when you turn the defense cards down to $1 cost with the low market. I thought Bonanza should be on somebody's list, and it wasn't, but that's okay, because there were so many good ones to choose from. We all have different ideas of what we like and what we dislike. But anyway, my number 3 was Signs of Portent. There's been so many times where I felt like, especially with just me and Matthew, where we rolled the Zodiac die, and it just happened to be like the second to last one, and we knew what the winning one was, so that was kind of always a fun mechanic. And it also kind of reveals useless ones if you've already drawn a few in the game, so that's kind of fun too.
Yeah, Signs of Portent is an interesting card because the Zodiacs are inherently not very valuable because there's such a low chance they actually do anything. But Signs of Portent, all of a sudden, all the ones that, they all had very low value to start with statistically, around the $0.8 range, I think is my estimate. I'd have to look at that again. I haven't done the calculations since Creature Feature. But as soon as this card is played, all of those become useless. Then they're worth relatively zero. There are exceptions, which one is coming up here actually. Um, but then the one that is the winner is worth a whole lot, because if you have that Zodiac, you are guaranteed in the final drawing, which everyone, even as everyone plays starter set, they are well aware that being in the final drawing is one of the most important things you could try to preserve, because sure, you could have a lot of bunnies, but that could change very quickly. So you see cards like Area 51 being used on yourself to try to preserve a bunny. Hemp from the red booster was used to counter that. Zodiacs have fewer counters. So that's important to know which one's the winning one, and thus Signs of Portent is a good card. And it's also very nice that it reveals it to all players, not just the person who plays the card, unlike Insight, although I do like both cards. What's your number 3, Mikey?
My number 3 is Return to Sender. May be used once by a player to return any one bunny that was forced from a player for any reason except death back to the previous owner. May be used at any time, even after the winning Zodiac sign has been revealed.
Well, that's good timing.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that one. That wasn't the one I was talking about.
This, I just like this because well, it always sucks to to get a bunny taken away, especially when, I've never had this happen, because most people that I play with are nice enough to allow you to keep a bunny, at least one bunny at the end of the game. But if you are at the end of the game, or somebody else is at the end of the game, and get their bunny stolen from them, and you play this down, well, then that saves your butt, or it saves somebody else. The other thing that's nice about this is maybe at the end, this is all essentially at end of game scenarios where this, I feel like, is the most valid to use. But if somebody steals a bunny from you at the end of the game, or from somebody else, and that is how they are making it into the final drawings, because they have a bunny, because they have that bunny in particular, and then say maybe they get the winning Zodiac, and then you're like, nah, and so you just play this down, and it goes back to you or whomever the bunny came from, and then that person is having a very sad day. But it may be a very good day for you. So, yeah, I think this is a pretty neat card.
Neat.
Yes, neat. So, yes, that is my third card. So, Return to Sender.
Yeah, another great example of what I was talking about before, where the Zodiacs is a mechanic that's released, and the very next booster after we have a card that is somewhat designed to counter the Zodiacs, because although I didn't play much in that format, I imagine with the initial release of the green booster, Zodiacs were significantly more relevant than they are now. These days, they tend not to matter most of the time, since each of them is only a 1 in 24. But yes, Return to Sender, an excellent choice. Moving on to the number 2 picks. My number 2, here's a big one. Retrieval. It can be used once by a player. It's a special aggressive card. Special is gives it excellent strength. It can be used once by a player to retrieve and immediately use any of the last 5 run cards played. Absolutely insane amounts of flexibility, especially since it's a special, because what you do is you just keep this in your hand. Don't tell anyone. They don't know. And then somebody's going to do something amazing. Okay, they're going to do something really amazing. They're going to play Shockwave, for example. And then the very next turn, you're going to be like, oh, I think I'm going to play Retrieval. That's actually a bad example, because Retrieval is an aggressive card. But imagine a card like Shockwave, and you happen to have a bunny left, and maybe it wasn't used directly against you, but you want to take advantage of it anyways. And then you're just like,
There's a lot of other examples.
there's any strong run card in the game is a viable target for this, and there's a whole lot of them. So you just keep this in your hand. Or you save it if you really want to be obvious about it. Maybe you save and are being intimidating people with it. Be like, oh, don't do that, or I'm going to play my retrieval card. Haha. But it's so flexible.
Atlas Shrugged.
Such a great card. Atlas Shrugged. There we go. Thank you, Chris. In a two-player game where Atlas Shrugged is essentially a win condition, it has a 1.5% chance not to work without rerolls. But then you just say, you know, good thing I kept Retrieval in my hand because Atlas Shrugged lets you keep your hand. So the very next turn, I'm just like, Retrieval! Haha, you thought you won. Actually, I'm going to win this game. But that's how two-player games go for you.
Path to perfection.
Huh?
What?
Huh.
Who said that? So that's my number 2 is Retrieval. What's your number 2, Chris?
I put Shockwave. There's a lot of fun mechanics with Shockwave. It's also an insanely good removal card if there's barriers present. But it also just, without even barriers, you can steal some really good moments in the game with it. So it's a good card. Needs to be on somebody's list.
Yes, it's very very notorious in a 3-player scenario because what you do is when you play the card, you place it in between 2 players, and that player's bunnies will go to the next player directionally. So in a 3-player game, you place them between your 2 opponents, all of their bunnies go to you. Absolutely disgusting. Its only weakness is that it has the yellow ball with red stripe, which is enough. that is very important that it has that. I feel bad for anyone who had to deal with this card before the ominous Onyx booster was released. Thank goodness it came shortly after, I suppose, because that's a terrifying card right there. Still relevant no matter the player count, but especially in low player counts, absolutely ridiculous. It was very close to making it on my list, and I was very close to making it on my ban list for the same reasons.
Yeah, I could have banned it just as easily.
Yes. What's your number 2, Mikey? Did we lose Mikey?
Oh no.
I'm here.
There he is.
I thought I pressed the unmute button, but apparently not. So my number 2 is Pawn Recall. We've already talked about this a little bit, but I like this card because if you're playing in a game and your opponent just happens to draw a lot of dollar in the beginning, because normally what happens is when you shuffle, most people you just can't shuffle as thoroughly as you'd like. So generally there's a lot of dollar kind of clumped together a lot because of previous games. And that's how people, when they close or end the game, they put the dollar together and they stick it in the deck. And then it just gets shuffled poorly. So anyway, say your opponent's one of the lucky people who draws that gold mine of dollar. And at the beginning of the game, they're just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to buy all the pawns. And then you are sad because you get no pawns. And they get all these cool advantages and you're just left out to dry. Well, there's hope for you. You can play Pawn Recall. And then that person wasted all of their dollar because now they lose all their pawns. This would be especially fun to play right after somebody bought all the pawns. But anyway, they lose that dollar. It was wasted. And then you and all your friends have an opportunity to get pawns. It's like communism. Or something. So,
that would be Pawn. That would be Pawn Star, Mike. You're thinking of Pawn Star, where all the pawns are distributed among the opponents.
yes. There are many ideologies that you could play Yeah, Killer Bunnies. We should have a whole podcast about that.
That
That'd be
is true. You could implement several social interactions within Killer Bunnies. It could become quite interesting.
It's almost as if it's a game about social interaction.
Wow, interesting. Something I didn't think about with Pawn Recall as I was making my list is within 3 boosters we will have the Almond Crisp expansion. I suppose that's about 2 years out from now, and we will get the second pawn shop, and then we'll be at 20 pawns. So
Ooh.
watch out for Pawn Recall. It is still relevant today, especially since it's non-aggressive. That's absolutely ridiculous. And it will be relevant surely in the future. In before somebody says, well, Pawn Recall doesn't feature the brown pawn on its coloring scheme, so obviously that one's not returned. Somebody's going to say it. You watch. I just knows the coloring scheme in Pawn Recall. I'm like, yep, that's going to happen.
Depends what your definition of is.
That's right.
Ooh.
Does pawns include brown pawn? I believe it does, but it doesn't show that on the card. You know, the card only shows on the picture in orange, violets, blue, and yellow, so I think it only means those ones. The red
Does the-
pawn, which is obviously the best pawn, is not included here.
Does the card say all pawns?
You know, it does say all players to return their pawns, so
That is
you know
most
it
definitely
very
chocolate.
clearly is.
Brown.
It's very clearly up for interpretation.
Did God really say?
Yeah. Okay. Did Jeff really say? Okay. That was Mikey's number 2. So moving on to the moment everyone's been waiting for, the number 1 picks. My number 1. This might be a controversial one actually, because this very easily could make it on someone's ban list, but didn't today. ORP, otherwise known as Obnoxious Roaming Pest, which is a very accurate description. It is a roaming red card that's, of course, aggressive. Roams from player to player as opposed to bunny. And each round, the dice are rolled, all 8 of them. And depending on which die is the lowest, or whichever dice tied for the lowest, that player is going to lose that supply. So, for example, if green is the lowest, they will lose all of their cabbage. Big deal. If orange is the lowest, they will lose all of their carrots. Oh no! If yellow is the lowest, they lose all their dollar, and so on and so forth. You can even lose all of your pawns here with red the lowest. It's even a built-in roaming pawn recall. Combining with Ice, I was about to say it. Combining with Ice 9, although it does kill itself, because at that point Clear has also tied. Combining with Ice 9, your opponent loses everything.
Retrieval.
Well done, and retrieval it, and make play ORP again. Absolutely insane. Maybe even combining with Ice 9 and Every Cloud as a steel lining to make sure that the clear die is not a 9 and is a 10, and therefore your opponent loses everything and ORP doesn't even die. Absolutely ridiculous.
Do you know a good way to get it out? Maybe if you have Calcite Conundrum and you have Ice 9 and ORP lined up together.
I mean, yeah, those all were released at about the same time. We're going to... Is Khaki next? No, not Khaki next.
Calcite's in this
Pink
one.
is next. Yes, Calcite's in this one. Ice 9 is in Khaki. That's coming up in 2 boosters from now, I think. If I counted right. It might be 3. But anyways, this card does have one weakness. That is not written on the card. It's one of those instances where it's in the bunny bits exclusively. Sad day. I wish there was an icon. Fire. Yes, you could burn the card. That is an excellent strategy. But this is an example where I wish there was an icon on the card that says, hey, there's more rules in the bunny bits that you need to know. That would be great. But it's not there. This card cannot target a player that has a save Zodiac, which seems arbitrary, but that's how it is. So if every player has a save Zodiac, this card is completely worthless. If every player, except for one of them, has a save Zodiac, this card is incredible, and that player will cry because there are very few ways to remove this. It has to roll clear the lowest. The 20-sided die has to roll the lowest out of 8 dice. Or you play something like a Magic Spatula, something flexible like that, or Bad Mood Ood, I think can also do it, if I'm remembering my London cards correctly. that London or is that creature feature? I'm going crazy. We haven't done blind banter for a month. I'm thinking it's creature feature now. Maybe. It seems like a London card. I think it's creature feature though. Anyways, ORP, a very interesting roaming card because it has the potential to kill everything, but it might just kill nothing. You might hit something that you don't even have and then it feels good.
Feature.
Creature feature. Yes, I was correct. Okay.
It's not.
Am I correct that that one can remove roaming reds? Bad mood ood?
Yes.
Okay, I haven't lost my touch yet. Okay. Everyone can stop panicking. I still know my stuff roughly. I still need to read through the QCC. I'm due again.
We encourage everyone to read through the QCC at least once a month.
Once a month? I mean, like twice a year.
Once a month.
There you go, Jeff. Make sure you get on that, Jeff.
You're gonna have to go to Killer Bunny's confession, Matt.
I think I need to. I'm due. I haven't read for like 3/4 of a year. I need to go to Killer Bunny's confession. Who do I confess to?
Good question.
Because Jeff hasn't read it at all, so. I'll have to come to you for confession later, Mikey.
Alright, sounds good.
I also have to confess that I've been doing too many auto wins.
Ooh.
Oh,
We don't need to talk about
we
that.
don't need to talk about President Ficus. It was amazing.
It's not my fault!
It was
Dash
not
ran
Chris.
away and I knew I'd get blamed for it.
Yeah, I top decked 3 cards for lethal. It's fair and balanced.
You've
Okay.
done that like 4 times against me.
I think it's
In the
more
last-
than that. Yeah,
In the last summer, this summer, you've top decked at least 4 cards each time to steal a win.
yeah.
It's strictly top decks.
Yep. Sometimes Jeff Plus. Perfect top deck strategy, am I right? Okay, that was my number 1. Very exciting. Controversial card. The reference is obscure. Only Jeff knows it. Or anyone who... because it is a Jeff reference. It's not a movie reference. It is a reference to Jeff's life.
Does Jeff label his shoes with the letters
No,
shoe?
it's actually a student of his.
Oh.
I'm not sure how. I can't remember how the story went, so I'm not sure how one of his students became an obnoxious roaming pest. I'm guessing that was the student's decision. Hopefully. But we'll never know. Or will we? Okay, let's move on. Chris, what's your number 1?
Retrieval, it was an obvious choice for me. And a expansion with tons of synergy for it. I mostly put Retrieval on here because I feel like if we were to put a list together of the 10 most important cards in the game, Retrieval would be in the top 10. It's one of those MVP move cards that everybody needs to at least know what it does in order to properly use it.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely up there. I think
It's always going to be good, too.
it has sort of been replaced by Toucan. Sort of. Toucan is strictly an improvement in many cases, most cases. But yes, Retrieval is that doesn't devalue Retrieval at all. It still is very much up there on
Imagine if you combine
top.
them.
Yes, combine them. Toucan the Retrieval for extra synergy because that's a good strategy. Yes. No infinite attempts loop there, unfortunately. Okay. We already talked a bit about Retrieval. Mikey, what's your number 1? Which I'm surprised no one else had put on their list.
I know. I was surprised too.
No, it definitely could have made my list. It was very good.
Yeah, Chris, what you said before, when I was going through these cards, I'm like, there was none that I wanted to like necessarily put on my ban list because they were all good, but then there were other ones that were like good and I could put them on. They're all just good. Like there are some decks that maybe have a lot of filler cards, but this is not one of them.
Underground.
London.
No, I agree, Mikey. There were legitimately 10 to 12 cards I could have put in my top 3.
Oh yeah.
And whereas other times we've done this, I felt hard pressed to find 3 that I really liked.
Yeah, like
Yep.
like last booster with green. It's always difficult when a booster adds a mechanic that adds 12 cards by itself, because then if the mechanic is good, then the filler cards that go with the mechanic are also good, like Pawn Recall. That's a good card because pawns are good. Zodiac Thief. Zodiacs aren't that great, so it's not that great of a card. But yes, what's your number one, Mikey?
My number one is the White Stuff. Player of this card with this card set has exclusive use of the white die, which may be rolled and substituted for the roll of any other 12-sided die at any time during play. May be used once per card consequence. Well, this is just great. I mean, it's like having a pawn with rerolls, or like a super pink, or one of those cards. You get to roll an extra die if you don't like the outcome and say, "Oh, I was going to die in this because I played this weapon was played on me. Ha, joke's on you." Or if you combine it with ice, is it ice 9?
Ice
Or
Nine
no,
is an interesting combination.
yeah. I don't remember
I'm
what
not sure if that's the one you're thinking of, but that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm thinking of something. I don't remember. You probably will know some magical formula. I can't remember what it is right now. But anyway, yeah, this is awesome. But sad day if you roll the white and then use it to substitute the roll, and then it doesn't work. So that's a sad day. But it's always a second chance.
It's free.
It's free.
Yes, White Stuff is an excellent card. There are some interesting things you can do with it. The one I always think of is Carrot Top Royale with the optional red gamble, because you'll roll the 6 dice, the 6 standard dice, leave out red, don't touch it, and then if those have, and you roll white with them, and if somehow they all succeeded out of the 7 dice, then red is guaranteed. It's optional red without the gamble. It's great. There's that synergy. There's plenty of other synergies wherever you're rolling multiple dice. It's excellent. This is the first instance of roll substitution as a mechanic. Right after this, the pink timid is released with the pink substitution, which actually have very small differences. That's kind of a weird thing, where the mechanic is the same. White Stuff is stronger in the sense that no other card rolls white, and no other card will ever roll white, so this card is always a viable option, while some cards roll pink, and therefore you can't pink substitute because the pink's already being rolled. However, the pink timid can substitute any other die. The White Stuff can only be any 12-sided die, which is a very rare edge case. If you're rolling ORP, for example, and you want to substitute the pink die for the clear die to make ORP die easier, that is an option. White Stuff does not give you that option. I probably wouldn't have thought of that example if we weren't talking about ORP earlier, because I haven't seen ORP played for so long. Sad day. We always have saved Zodiacs. But yes, White Stuff, an excellent card. One complaint I have about White Stuff. Why is it a very special? There are a few edge cases, and I don't think any of them are relevant, because this is one of the specials that has a permanent effect, such as 2-time Tizzy Toss, Minolith being a pink circle example, so not a great example. Mike Post, all of those have permanent effects. They're special cards. This one is a very special card. The difference being some cards may steal both a special and a very special. So sure, an extra chance to steal it, I suppose. You're probably going to take it anyways. The other edge case being you could discard this from the hand. I'm not sure who in their right mind is discarding White Stuff to draw a card, but you could. And those are the edge cases. One that doesn't matter and one that doesn't matter. So why do we have various specials that have permanent continuous effects when they don't have any on-play effects? We will never know. Same could be asked of Calcite Conundrum. Why isn't that a save special that has a permanent effect rather than a run card that stays in play? The edge cases in that case being more relevant since it's more difficult to remove. It actually is a buff to calcite. This is, I suppose, a buff.
Keywords.
This is a buff to white stuff, I suppose, in the sense that you could discard it from the hand. Sure, I guess you could.
I don't know why you wouldn't.
I
do
don't know
that.
what you're doing. You're pretty desperate. It must be really late in the game that you want to discard white stuff, risk misfortune, and then draw a new card just to maybe find some last minute dollar that you needed.
I suppose if you already have a pink timid,
Well,
maybe
why
a
not
red
both?
timid.
Why not
I
all
know.
of them?
And if you have all the pawns and all the timids,
You'll never fail a card.
I know, but it does get to a redundancy point if you're trying to find money at the end of the game.
I suppose. But
But why?
I don't.
It is very special.
I'm trying to think. No, we there of course there were permanent effects that or continuous effects that were released to specials before this. The Minimalist being a key example. In some sense, a similar argument could be made that perhaps Noah's Flood and Bug Off should have been very specialist. I know the community back in the day of the Magic Care community always talked about how why aren't these cards very special, and I kind of agree with them. But those edge cases are more relevant in the sense that you have to actually take the time to save the card to be able to use it. So that kind of is a nerf to the card that's already weak. So I don't know. Game design. Early expansions. Maybe this is what Glenn is talking about when he says Conquest is more refined. I don't know. But that's a whole other topic. So yes, other than that, which is completely irrelevant, just a very nitpicky thing, and that doesn't matter whatsoever. I think the white stuff is an excellent card, and I definitely love to see it. It has its own edge case with Sunny Day that you never see the exchanging of the card. That's how powerful it is. Well, I suppose you also have the white party edge case. This specific card is referenced twice on other cards because everyone wants it. Okay, that was the last card for today. As far as announcements, I'm not sure what we got. Carrot Top Academy is starting up again soon. Now that I've relocated and can no longer play with Chris or Mikey in person, although I wasn't playing with Mikey in person recently anyways, because we were already far away, we're even farther now. Most of my games will be on Tabletop Simulator, which means I will have the opportunity to live stream them. So,
You should tell. We just did one.
Yes, we did just do a live stream. It is available on the same YouTube channel as these podcasts. So you can go check out the game if you feel so led. It was a 2-player game just for demonstration purposes. It lasted about 2 hours because we did a 30-carat game. If you just want the highlight of present Ficus Lethal, which you will never see again in your life. It's the first time I've ever seen the effect even used, much less win the game. There's a separate upload with just the 3.5-minute highlight. So more streams will be coming in the future. That's twitch.tv/MahoBear8. Although I'm sure you'd be able to find it pretty easily. So watch for that, I suppose. Carrot Top Academy will continue. At the very least, I'm planning on the Fundamentals episode coming out. I'll have to check which one we're on. I think we're up to rank, so I think we might be in khaki, if I remember right. But I'll have to check. That would be officer ranks. What are you saying, Chris? Hello? Okay.
No!
What?
Hi.
Did you have something to say?
Yes, you were going to talk about your upgraded Twitch account.
Oh yes, the Twitch account. It's a big milestone for us. Just yesterday, we got qualified for Twitch affiliates, which means we have sub emotes now. So those are in progress. That's pretty exciting. It means our channel is a bit more official. So there you go. Proud moment for me. We made it. 50 followers. Ha ha.
Let's see if we can double that by next episode.
Let's double that by next episode. That would be incredible.
Do
But
we
yeah,
have 50 listeners?
we have, yeah, about, if we count YouTube and Anchor, we have over 60.
Ooh.
Mikey didn't know that.
No, I don't know anything. I just live in North Dakota, where apparently we're on like multiple mini states quarantine lists, so we can't go anywhere. It's
Oh,
just a
fun.
mess. So I don't know anything. I live under a rock.
Yeah, nobody knows what's going on anymore. Okay, well, that's been a good episode. So thank you everyone for listening to the podcast today, and of course, thank you for Chris for joining. Next episode has not been decided yet, but we'll think about that and hopefully get out in 2 weeks if we have trouble.
Will be out.
We have some topics available. I'll just have to remember what they are and try to schedule with the people who are going to guest for those. Because scheduling is difficult, especially in any of these times. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll have a plan by then. And then, of course, we will continue the Booster Review series 4 weeks from now. Very exciting. Anything you'd like to say, Mikey?
Things are very confusing now. And I hope you all are doing well. I hope, Jeff, that you are doing well. Haven't heard from you in a while. We miss you. Just everybody, just take deep breaths. Play Killer Bunnies on tabletop. Play 6 feet social distancing Killer Bunnies in person. Play with like those mechanical arm things, you stick and grab stuff with.
And take a picture and post it on the bunny circle because we want to see a picture of that.
Yes.
That'd be incredible.
Ooh, we should
Do we
offer
still-
a prize.
Do we still want Maple Sparkle?
Yes,
Yes.
we still want Maple Sparkle. That brings something up. We officially have a prize fund. So we will be doing giveaways at some point, probably with the release of Cake Batter. Thanks to a generous donation from Ultra Pro for the content we made for Killer Bunnies Lights, which you should also be watching out for. There we go. There's 2 announcements I missed.
There we go. Wow, I'm amazing. I just come up with things and all of a sudden announcements come. So anyway, stay safe, everybody. Stay safe both physically and mentally. Have fun. It was good to be back, and I want to make sure that we don't hopefully have a podcast out in 2 weeks, but that we do have a podcast out in 2 weeks. And until then, Jeff bless.
Jeff, bless.